Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Knox Makers. It's Tuesday night, and I'm Isaac. I'll be your host. By tradition, we gather this evening to share with each other projects that we've been working on, successful or otherwise, just to sort of inspire and inform all of our fellow Knox Makers members. And we've got several folks who brought projects to share with us this evening. To start us off, we've got Kevin, who's got a 3D printed sign.
Well, the last two times I've presented a bit have not been successful. Today's going to be successful. So in the machine area, there is a parts washer. And when I was parts washing it, I had gloves on. Billy saw I had gloves on, thought that's oh cool. However, I had a little hole in my glove, which I didn't really think was a big deal because I thought it was a detergent. But it turns out the stuff in that parts washer is lye, and my finger kind of got ate up from it. So thought we might make a sign to tell other people to make sure they keep their skin out of that. So I was just going to go through and show how the process I went through to make the sign. So I first brought up in GIMP. Let me turn this around this way. Went in GIMP and just basically used text and stuff and just designed how I wanted it to look. Then you select the black color if you want to make it black and white, you select the black color that you have and you say to path, which is right there at the bottom. That then makes a path out of your item. You can then go over here onto your path tab, and if you double click on that, it will bring in and show you all the elements of your path. Like, so for example, here it wasn't quite straight, so it doesn't show it here, but I went in and readjusted it so that it was all nice and straight. Then you can right click on that path, and at the base you say export path. Was I knocking it? Yeah, sorry. All right, so then you want to, when you export it, you don't have to, but if you don't, it won't work in the next step, so you want to put a .svg at the end. Then you go into Inkscape, which is another open source program, and you click import. And I picked that path.svg. It defaults to a DPI of 300. I changed it down to 100 so it wasn't so huge. And that brings it in that looks like that. So then I used the paint bucket to fill the letters. But I did notice that if I didn't first zoom, that it didn't fill in all the corners. So, but if you do it when it is zoomed in, it fills in fine. I'm not sure why the difference of that is. So I got it all looking nice like that. Then I went to Save As, and I saved it as a, let's see, I'm not sure why that's doing that. I've never seen that before. All right. So I saved as a DXF, which is an AutoCAD format. Then the last step is I opened up OpenSCAD, which is a 3D modeling software. And this is the key part here. You say import and then the name of that file you saved it as. That brings it in as a 2D object like that. But we want it to look like that, which is more three-dimensional. So you do that by doing what's called an extrude. So in OpenSCAD, each line above it, so you take the drawing and then you do a linear extrude for however thick my variable says, and then I did a translation which moved it down to the origin, and then I scaled it. And those are some of the variables I set up there. I then made a base for it, and I cut out those holes, and I'll show why I did that in a minute. And I put a plate underneath it and a plate on top of it, and finally put my extruded object on top of that. And here is all of my code, and I'd be happy to show you how that all works if anyone's interested. Then I saved it as a warning STL, and then I brought it into my slicer. And that's what it looks like in the slicer program. If you put on X-ray, you can see those little holes there. So then and if you do a layer view, that's what it's going to do. And so I printed it right up to that layer. And one of the other nights, someone showed on Prusa Slicer that it has a built-in way to stop at a certain layer. And I tried to figure out how to do that with this one, which is Cura, and I really couldn't figure out how to do it well. So I just had to kind of figure out what layer it was, took the number of layers times my height, and then watched on my printer till I got to that point, and then I pressed pause. And what I did is I put in a little neodymium magnet, which I salvaged from a hard drive, and I put one on each of those. Then I printed it out, and here's my final project. And so it's magnetic, and we'll put that on the parts washer. Thank you.
Well, that was really interesting for me because those are all three tools that I use routinely, GIMP and Inkscape and OpenSCAD, but I've never used them that way. It's so neat to see how other people use them. Next up, we've got David, who's brought some restored tools to share with us.
Hello. So last time I showed y'all some chucks that I had restored, more from the bucket of rust here. My girlfriend's father gave me some old tools that belonged to his father / grandfather, one of which was this large rasp, which I think cleaned up pretty nicely. Just picture this as a bar of rust and the handle completely white, because I actually thought it had been painted, but the plastic had hazed over and actually blistered. So I did go back with a razor blade and scrape off that layer, and it had this amber plastic underneath it, so that looks a lot nicer. It did off-gas it was pretty smelly for a while, but I washed it real good and just let it sit outside. It seems to be less offensive now.
So you're saying after you took off the coating, then it started ungassing?
Yeah, once I exposed the bare plastic. So that was not a pleasant surprise. I'm still not completely sold. I might just take this off and replace it with a nice wooden handle. But I can pass this around if y'all look. Big rasp there. This was a combination square that, again, solid block of rust, cleaned up pretty nice. Brown and sharp, if any of good quality brand there. And this was something that belonged to my dad, which this is a little block plane, the adjustable mouth on it, and cleaned that up. So I had to, sand the sole flat and sharpen the blade, and it came out okay. It's usable, serviceable. Cost me 0 money, so solid win. So that's what I got.
It's very nicely done. I guess most folks here know, the old school tools have got a level of quality that's hard to find now or hard to afford. It's nice to see them being rescued like that. Finally, this evening we've got Mellow Rush, who has signed up to show us the Moon Saber.
Hello everyone, and today I'm going to teach you the basic principles on what not to do with your first sword. It's long. Okay, I'm just going to hold this up. I made the moon saber with a simple dream of making an Egyptian kofesh. But it turned out to be looking more like crescent moon. So I named it after the moon by naming it the moon saber. And here's one thing you should never ever do with your first sword. You should not try to slash it into the ground. You should not try to slash it into a tree. And by all means necessary, don't try to use it to climb a tree. And here's one thing you should do with your first sword. If you find any kudzu vine, use it as a sharpness test. Because who knows the reason why you should kill kudzu vine?
So then take over the world. Yes.
Whose side are you on? Yes, kudzu vine are very invasive. So, kill all of it. But I'm getting off topic again. Alright then.
How did you make that?
Aggressive hitting with hammer.
I mean, was it one long piece and then you bent it, or did you take a curve and attach it to a handle?
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure it was some sort of like a crank at one point. Essentially, I just straightened that out. My dad flattened it and then bent it after we unbent it. And then I did one of the things you should never do. I slashed it into the ground. And then I used it to climb a tree. And I used it against a tree. But I did use it against kudzu vine. It's dull, but it still did the work.
How'd you sharpen it?
Oh, it's not sharp, it's just polished.
Okay.
But I used the bell grinder, metalworking shop.
Very nice.
I will pass this around.
All right, thank you very much. That is the last of our sign-ups. Did anyone else bring something to share with us that did not make it onto the sheet? No. Okay, I've got a few things to share with you this evening. We've got several classes coming up in the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow, we've got a hand tool sharpening class, which can be applied to many things, including moon blades, one imagines. That is from 7 until 9, and I believe there are about 3 tickets left there. That is a dynamite class, and so for all the enthusiasts of hand tools, you may want to check that out. We also have Woodworking 101, that's the authorization class for our wood shop. That'll be this Saturday from 10 until 12, 10 till 12. I think there's still 1 ticket, and you're going to need that if you want to operate the wood shop, so you may want to get on that. Also on Saturday, we have a blacksmithing authorization class, so if you want access to the blacksmithing forge and to get in on that action, there's several tickets left for that too. That's 12:30 to 2:30. And finally on Saturday, we also have a Learn to Sew class in our fiber arts area, which is 1:30 until 4:30, and there's still a ticket left there. So we've got 3 dynamite classes going on this Saturday. And then I also mentioned that we've got MIG Welding 101. That's the authorization class for the metalworking zone. MIG Welding 101 is next Friday at 6:30, and there are several tickets left. Those tend to go quickly, so if you're interested, you may want to snack that up. We also do have 2 laser cutter classes next Saturday, but they're both sold out already. Man, you got to get on those quick. So remember, you can always get tickets and find out what we've got coming up at knoxmakers.org/events. That is our authoritative calendar. And let me remind you that all Knox Makers members can teach classes. Every one of y'all know all sorts of wonderful things that we don't know yet. And we love classes and we love workshops, and you don't have to be an expert to teach one of those. So if you're interested in doing so, you can help make money for a zone. You can help make money for yourself if you'd like. Talk to the czar or czarina in the most appropriate area to get a class organized if you're interested in getting involved. Also, I remind you that we're still trying to get everything reorganized here throughout the workshop. So if you have any time that you're able to spare, you might consider volunteering with one of the zones Still painting to do, stuff to be moved around, doesn't necessarily have to be skilled labor even, but this whole thing only works with our collected labor, so please consider volunteering your valuable time. Speaking of which, probably need to get the trash out this evening. Can I get anybody to volunteer to get the trash out this evening? My man, thank you. And finally, if you have not yet seen the shop, if this is your first evening here, feel free to grab one of the board members with a red tag or Azara's Arena with a black tag and just ask for a tour. We're proud to show you around, be glad to answer any questions you've got. So with that, we're going to go out in the workshop, make a mess, make some weird stuff, hang out. Thanks everybody for coming. It's great to see you.